Trump, in addition to the inward pressure that they're facing from their new prime minister, as well as tariffs, additional tariffs from China, Canada is facing new tariffs. And Trump spoke about this extensively. Make sure you guys hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's get into it.
In Canada, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy products. You know about that. And when I left, we had that.
Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that Canada was already charging us over 200% for dairy products? Why are we just now becoming aware of the fact that all of these other countries been taxing us for a long time and getting away with it? But then they want to act like we the bad guy when we decide that we want to go ahead and address it accordingly. Now everybody want to act like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Did y'all know that Canada was charging us over 200% for dairy products, according to what Trump is saying right now?
Well taken care of, but under Biden,
What up,
they
Cat
just
Eyes?
kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with the Canadian representatives. 250% for dairy products, tariff. So where do you hear that? You don't
Tariffs
hear
on
that.
everybody.
They have a tremendously high tariff. Give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out on lumber. So they sell us lumber. They have a tremendous tariff. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada, but our numbers are a tiny fraction of that. Almost.
Is that fair? Is that fair? Is it fair that they make it impossible for us to sell products over there, but then they say that this is equal, we have an equal footing, this is our best friend? Canada said that they was our best friend. Then why are you preventing me from being able to get my money?
It's non-existent. And what we're doing is freeing up our forests from the environmental nonsense that they put on them, where you can't cut down a tree. And we have to cut down trees in order to build the firewalls. And those trees are sold. But we're freeing it up on an emergency basis because Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products. 250%. Nobody ever talks about that. 250% tariff. Which is taking advantage of our farmers, so that's not going to happen anymore. They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it, and that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early as today, or we'll wait till Monday or Tuesday, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to charge the same thing. It's not fair, never has been fair.
Matt, where exactly are we with tariffs? What's the status of these tariffs today?
Yeah, it's incredibly confusing. It feels like every hour almost there's a new tariff that is threatened or dialed back or delayed. I haven't looked at my phone in 90 seconds, so I might have missed another tariff threat on Truth Social. But look, 20% tariffs on China, that did kick in on Tuesday. There's also 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, excluding autos and products that are compliant with the USMCA trade agreement. 10% tariff on Canadian energy and potash, which is a compound used to make fertilizer that American farmers need. But look, there's more tariffs that are on the way. Maybe. I mean, the president has threatened to impose new tariffs on steel and aluminum imports next week.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Although we've granted exemptions to the auto industry, and the auto industry, they should have been making adjustments, and they should have known that Trump was going to win the president of the United States of America. That's what they get. That's what they get. And the UAW, y'all have done y'all part in supporting leadership in the UAW that ultimately drove manufacturing into Mexico in the first place. You did. And I warned you during your last strike that y'all did against American automakers. I've warned you in previous strikes. You guys have driven your trash leadership, which we have heard nothing from Sean Fain. Has anybody heard from Sean Fain? Ever since Biden got ousted, we ain't hear a word from Sean Fain. Not one word have we heard from Sean. Remember, he was all on the stump and he was looking for a cabinet position within the Biden administration. Kamala Harris didn't really promise him anything, but he couldn't go back on his promise that he made to Biden, so he still had to, support the Kamala Harris campaign. We ain't heard nothing from President Sean Fain. Y'all getting rid of Sean Fain? And then manufacturing was driven to Mexico and Canada. And what that did was it basically eliminated American jobs while continuing to say, hey, made in the Americas, made in North America, made in, the region where we have the USMCA agreement, which used to be the NAFTA agreement. So then they were basically building parts and manufacturing everything inside of Mexico. And they were using parts that was shipped over from China. And Trump said, no more. You're not going to get through this loophole. You're not going to finesse us. You're not going to take advantage of the American taxpayers. We're not going to subsidize you, especially after we had to bail you guys out during the last meltdown of the United States of America in 2008, which was largely attributed to Bush and the Clinton organization, in my opinion, that Obama came in and inherited. So I'm not going to lay that at his feet. But Trump said, listen, we're not going to do that anymore. And so United States manufacturers, auto manufacturers, not only from the United States of America, but also foreign automakers, have to start making their cars inside of the United States of America, or they're going to get tariffed. Or they're going to get tariffed. That's just it. And the aluminum industry and the steel industry, thank Trump. He's saving y'all from yourselves. So now, instead of having to compete and manufacturing steel and aluminum at a loss, we preserve jobs, and hopefully we can continue to get investment inside of the United States of America where you guys can be profitable and then reinvest into making better facilities for your workers to be able to work in. Thank you, Trump. To all of my friends down there at the steel industry, down there in Dearborn, Michigan, thanks, Trump. He's actually working on your behalf and making it more difficult for manufacturers to buy steel and aluminum that they then use to make the parts for your car. He's incentivizing them to buy here in America instead of buying overseas. So when you see a lot of these Democrats and they say stuff like, they're going to make it more expensive, what they're effectively doing is saying, eliminate American jobs so that you can buy cheaper cars. Listen to what I'm saying. When you see Jasmine Crockett and AOC and Bernie Sanders and all of these people who have never actually had a real job, I'm not talking about being a waitress. I'm talking about a real job working in a manufacturing facility, being, of service to somebody else outside of American taxpayer dollars. What they're telling you to do is to get rid of American jobs so that we can buy cheaper products from overseas, shut down our plants inside of the United States of America, get more government federal jobs, which you use your taxpayers to subsidize, which then increase the federal deficit, all so you can hopefully buy a Chinese vehicle. It's the same thing that Clinton did in the 90s. He sold off all of the manufacturing. He allowed for them to all go overseas. It laid off all of the manufacturers and got rid of industries inside of the United States of America. It temporarily boosted the amount of money that we were generating because we became a financing state, financing capital, financing country. And so that's when the banks became too big to fail and we couldn't self-correct. Right? We couldn't have a reset within the banking industry to where they learn from their lessons, which Obama then inherited and Bush emphasized and then capitalized off of, while at the same time jumping into these wars so he can stay in office. And I hated when Bush was in office. And Clinton sold off the American manufacturing industries inside of the United States of America that was pushed even further into a recession in 2008. That's why the banks became too big to fail, because the only way in which we were making money was based off of the interest that you guys was paying off of the services that was being offered. We became a financing capital. Even the financing arms of the auto manufacturers, that's why they pushed so far into subprime loans, because that's the way that they were boosting profits. We weren't selling anything to anybody based off of what we were making. All right, let me break it down for y'all. Y'all may not understand this, but I'm going to break it down for you just so you can truly understand from a C student's perspective, okay? You ready? All right, check this out. So the banking industry And all of these other manufacturers were incentivized in the 90s to set up their own financing arms. That's why when you buy a car from General Motors, you then finance it from GMAC at the time, right? Or GM Financial. Or if you buy a Lexus, it's Lexus Financial. If you buy Toyota, it's Toyota Financial. Just remixed, right? Ally used to be what I believe was GM Financial or GMAC, right? Ford Credit. All of these places, right? And the reason that they did that is because they needed to boost profits. So when you make a vehicle, all right, this is the greatest morning show on earth, and I need you to really pay attention. Listen so you'll understand where the money comes from. Hear me out. Pay attention. Turn up your TV. For all of my hairdressers, for all of my people that's driving trucks, from everybody that's working from home. If you in the office right now, turn it up in your AirPods so I can give you a financial lesson. You can understand where it comes back to the money. Okay? We used to just sell cars, right? General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, all of those places, they used to just sell vehicles. And what happened was you would save up for a car and you would just pay cash for it. And that was back when wages was in the single digits, the dollars, $2, $3, $4. If you was really getting money, you wind up going all the way up to $9, $10, $11 an hour, and the auto manufacturers was booming. They would save, you would buy the car cash, and that would be the end of it. We didn't have all of this debt. At some point, when we started to get rid of manufacturing in the United States of America, we needed to boost profits. So we separated it. And manufacturers of all types, but I'm just going to use the auto industry to illustrate this. Auto industry decided that, you know what? In order to sell more vehicles, then we can finance it. It's the same thing that happened with the housing industry. You used to save for a house, you buy the house, or you built the house, and that was the end of it. You pay your property taxes, and that goes into the infrastructure and the schools and all of that. But instead, we decided that, hey, we can get more houses sold, we can get more cars sold if we allow for you idiots to finance it, because we can't wait to put something on a payment plan. So we established the rules around financing, and then they created separate arms of these auto manufacturers. That's when now it's normal, because a lot of y'all was just born into it, so you don't know the history of it, but now it's normal. So what they did was they created separate arms. They had the financing arm that would then say, okay, listen, we'll give it to you for 60 months, 48 months, 60 months, and now it goes up to 72 months and 84 months, and then you'll pay us the interest. So that's how they make their money off of the interest. But they had to create a banking arm essentially to then lend the manufacturer the money so that the manufacturer makes the money, right? So then they have the transaction price. What they also found was that they can raise the prices of the vehicles because you'd be more willing to pay for it if you can actually justify it in the financing arms, right? If you can go buy not how much you buy for the vehicle for, but how much your car payment is, you'd be willing to buy it. It's the same thing with the housing industry. They're able to raise the prices of the houses as long as they lower the interest rates, because they know that you are more concerned with the payment instead of how much you're paying in interest, which you wind up paying for that car way more than you would have had you pay cash for it. And people hate Dave Ramsey for saying, hey, pay cash, get rid of the debt, because they've been socialized to believe that financing is the way to go, because we've basically marketed it to you, and now you market it to each other to where we don't even have to create commercials for you. So what happened was they created a separate arm. They created the financing arm, and they got the manufacturing arm. They're not concerned about the manufacturing arm, because the minute that it leaves the lot and it goes over to the dealership is now paying interest on that car, which they're now incentivized to get it over to you. So they want to get incentives from the financing arm. That's why when you go to the dealership, right? I'm giving y'all a lesson. Listen. When you go to the dealership, they don't want you to buy the car cash. They want to move the vehicle, but especially for vehicles that are highly sought after, they don't want to buy the car cash because they get incentives from the financing arms to then finance it, because that's how they make their money. So at some point, it became imbalanced. It went away from us making vehicles, and they were more incentivized to finance vehicles, right? Because they were making more money, profitability off of lending you money than they were off of manufacturing the vehicles themselves. We no longer became a manufacturing hub, we became a financing hub. That's why banks were too big to fail in 2008. But then they got greedy because they wanted to sell more vehicles and they wanted to finance more vehicles and they wanted to increase profits. So what did they do? They said, we can create a subprime borrower. Now, instead of your credit score justifying you being able to afford the vehicle, we will charge you more. It costs more to be poor. We will charge you more in interest if you are a riskier lender, and we're going to get our money up front. And it became so financially advantageous. It became so much more profitable for the financing arms that they took on more subprime borrowers, and then it extended into the housing industry, it extended into cars, it extended into credit cards, it extended into everything. Eventually, they got so greedy that they started incentivizing the bureaus and the credit agencies that was supposed to be policing them. They start paying them off because they were making so much money, which then created the economic crisis that we faced in 2008. America sold off its manufacturing and we had no other industry to depend on, which we then had to bail out the banks. We then had to bail out the banks. And guess what? Some of those financing arms, they folded. You know what wound up happening? We created new ones. And we said, well, we just going to abide by the rules this time. We're going to make sure that we don't break the rules that then put us in this position. And we're going to be more stringent on who we lend to. And that's why nobody could get a loan in 2009, 2010, 2011. Anybody that was cash flush, you benefited. You had a buying opportunity. For the people that say, oh man, the market is correcting itself, stocks is overinflated. A lot of these companies, the valuation of them are overinflated. So now it's a buying opportunity for you because anybody that got cash, anybody that's generating revenue, anybody that's not hamstrung by a bunch of debt that they got to keep paying for, you now can pay into it and buy into it and be able to profit more because your stocks and the valuation of the things that you're buying is going to explode over a period of time because you got a long-term view. What Trump is trying to do is basically not make us a one-trick pony and bring manufacturing back inside of the United States of America. But he can't explain this to you because your attention span is so low that you don't really understand that you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, you're creating a Ponzi scheme, and you're making your children have to suffer for the bad decisions and the voting decisions that you make because you're ignorant, you're stupid, you don't understand it, you don't get it. You don't understand the idea behind leveraging tariffs or then having negotiations or forcing companies to create jobs back in the United States of America. You can't do so by saying, hey, you just need to create a job because they go by the profits. But if you say, okay, well, you got to pay more to sell to American citizens, then they're going to say, you know what? Let me create a manufacturing facility there because it's going to be beneficial for us in the future. And we ain't got to worry about tariffs anymore. The minute that you start learning, the minute that you understand it more, the minute that you then unlock yourself to think differently about how money works, you don't look at the industry and say, man, stocks is down. You say, this is a buying opportunity. You don't look at what the tariffs do and say, man, it costs me more. You say, how many jobs can we create? It's a different mindset that comes along with it. We want smaller government, more private industry, less subsidizing people to get federal jobs and acting like we got a lot of jobs during the Biden administration. We didn't. We just gave out a bunch of money and increased the federal deficit. That is correct. That is why it's called predatory lending. That is because they know that it's going to cost you way more. Think about it for a second. You say, man, it cost me more to buy a house. I will tell you that the interest rates are much lower than they were in the 80s and 90s. But they'll say, man, it cost me more to be able to buy a house, right? Or my payment is higher on my car or my house. I'm not going to dig no more into it. You so focused on the payment instead of focusing on the product. I don't want to deep dive too much into it.